So in the previous discussion, we talked about how to tell if shapes are similar and how to use that information. This one's going to focus on congruent shapes. Most specifically, how do you express that relationship and how can you use those congruence relationships to figure things out? So let's take a look here. We've got two triangles. Now, remember we said to be congruent, corresponding angles have to match, corresponding sides have to match. They've got to be the same sizes. So let's just take a look here at these two triangles and see what we've got. Angle-wise, I see here that in each triangle, I've got an angle with 1 mark, and an angle with 2 marks, and an angle with 3 marks. Okay. I can see that I have sides with 1 mark, so that means those two sides are the same length. I've got sides with 2 marks, so those two sides are the same length. And I've got sides with 3 marks. Those two sides are the same length. Now, one more thing that I do need you to check, and this almost always happens, but make sure they're in the same spots. Here's what I mean. Notice how the side that has 1 mark is between the angles with 2 and 1 arcs. Make sure the same thing happens in the other triangle. Here's 1 mark. It's between the 2 and the 1 marked angles, okay? The side with 2 marks is between the 2 and 3 angles. Side with 2 marks is between the 2 and 3 angles, okay. And then the third one is going to match up because there's only one option left. Now, if I want to show that these two triangles are congruent, let's pick the one on the left. And for the first triangle, it doesn't matter what order you write the 3 corners in. When you name a triangle, you name its 3 corners. So I'm just going to do it in alphabetical order. So T, U, V. So if you put the little triangle in front, this is saying, hey, the shape that is a triangle with corners at point T, point U, and point V. We know it's congruent to this triangle over here. But here's the thing. You have to make sure that for the second triangle, you put the letters in the same order, the corresponding order. Here's what I mean. Take a look at angle T. Angle T has 1 mark. That means that when you're naming the second triangle, you've got to start at the corner that has 1 mark. So it's got to be I that you start with. U is the middle letter over here. That's the 2 marked angle. So that means in my second triangle, H has to be the middle letter because it's got those 2 marks. The V, that's my 3 mark angle. So I've got to end up here with my G as the 3 mark angle. So choose whatever order you want for the first, but then make sure that you have a careful corresponding order for the second. If your letters are out of order, your congruent statement is no longer correct. Pay very careful attention to the order of those letters. Let's have you try this one. So let's name the first triangle. Let's just do the same thing. We're going to do it alphabetical to start with, ABC. There's the symbol for congruent. It's that equal sign with the squiggle on top. Do a quick pause here. I want you now to name the second triangle, making sure you put the letters in the right spots. Okay, you better have paused. So ABC, for A, that's starting with the 1 marked angle. So I've got to start with F in my second triangle, since it has the 1 mark. B is 2 marks, so I've got to go to E with 2 marks. And then lastly, C has the 3 marks, so I've got to end with D that has the 3 marks. So triangle ABC, if that's the way you name the first triangle, you must name the second triangle in order, F, then E, then D. Now, the reason we do that is so that you can now just look at this relationship and know which parts correspond with each other. So you don't need to do this all the time, but just for practice once. I know that if this triangle goes XYZ to FED, that angle X has to be the same as angle F because they're both in the first spot. Angle Y has to be the same as angle E. Angle Z has to be the same as angle D. So because we know the orders of the letter matters, we can now use this statement to figure out what matches up with what. That's actually pretty cool. So to answer this question, angle Z is congruent to which other angle? Well, Z is in the third spot, D is in the third spot, so it's going to be angle D. The same thing is then going to be true when we start to talk about sides. So when you see two letters with a line on top, that's referring to a segment, so a side of the triangle that goes between those 2 points. So HI is this line segment right there. The question then is, okay, in the other triangle, which corresponding side is congruent to this HI? Remember, the order of the letters matters. H and I is the last 2 letters. So in the second triangle, I want the last 2 letters. So the X and the Z, that's the side that matches up and is the same length as side HI. So that's why it's super important when you're writing those congruence statements, make sure your letters match up, because we then use that to determine congruence relationships going forward. It's so handy, in fact, that you can now do congruence relationships without even having a picture in front of you. So I'd like you now to do a quick pause. I want you to try both of these and then unpause when you're ready to check those answers. All right, so angle, HIG. So that starts in the middle. So over here, I'm going to start in the middle. So H is the middle, I is at the back, so E is at the back. G is in the front, so D is in the front. There it is. Now, in terms of what you may see on an answer key, just so you know, the angle is sometimes referred to with 3 letters. So let's take a look here at I'm just going to sketch triangle GHI real quick. Now, because I don't know what it looks like, I'm just going to make one up. When you talk about angle HIG, that's saying start at point H, go to point I, and then end at point G. So we're talking about that angle that has its vertex, its point at I. So HIG is the 3-letter name of the angle. If you ever name an angle with 1 letter, you're referring to this one that's at the corner, at the vertex. So that's angle I, is another way to refer to this angle. So on the answer key for this problem, it may actually just say angle E. So in a triangle, you can use 3 letters, or if you want to use just one, it's got to be the letter that's in the middle, because that's the one that's going to end up being the vertex. So another acceptable answer in this case would be just to say angle E. And then lastly, over here, segment JH, well, that's the last 2 spots. So in this triangle, it's got to be the last 2 spots. So segment FD is that congruence relationship.